The article kind of started talking about how the Earth was just really, it was really freaking hot. I have my notes. It was hot AF, then a ton of icy comets pelted it, giving us our water. So, so water never came from, like, it did not originate on Earth. It
Right.
originated from outer space. So it was saying if we're made up mostly of water and no living thing on Earth can do without it, are we aliens too?
Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, human design specialist.
And I'm Haley, the human design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design High podcast. Let's get into it.
Hi Haley, how you doing?
Hi, good.
Good to see you. And welcome back to the podcast. We
Yes.
have a fun little topic today. I feel like we're going to just kind of get into it because we have been chit-chatting a little bit before we hit
Yes.
record, and I really don't see how much of what we were talking about is relevant to anybody other than you just spent a nice restful week by yourself, I think, or close
Yes.
to a week.
Yeah. Almost a week.
You got to
Yes.
restore your projector energy.
Yes. Yep. Got to do all the things that I like to do with no interference.
So, yeah, I mean, I could relate to that. I like that too, but I'm a generator. Your dad's a manifesting generator. So, like, how does it feel? Does it feel different to not have him like physically in the apartment?
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if I'm feeling this on an energetic level or like I'm perceiving it mentally, but I feel like less pressured.
So, what kind of pressure do you normally feel?
Well, it's more like I don't always know what I'm gonna do between like when I get off work and when I
Mm-hmm.
go to start dinner or get dinner or whatever. And so
Mm-hmm.
when Presley is here, I always feel like he knows exactly what it is he's gonna do.
Mm,
And then if I'm not doing something, like he's judging me for that, for not doing something. So
mm-hmm.
that's what I mean by I don't feel pressured.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's interesting because I've been feeling the same thing lately. I mean, I can relate to it in the sense
Hmm.
that this time of year, your dad is here more often because he's got seasonal work. He's a boat captain, and he is working on the boat that he drives. Like he's doing all the maintenance, he's getting everything
Hmm.
ready, but it's here at the house. And I'm here now all the time. I'm not working at the flower shop anymore.
Hmm.
So a lot of my work here is at my desk and it's at the front of the house where he walks in and out. And my work, there's a lot of like things that look like I'm not doing anything, you know,
Contemplation.
especially to him. Like he is a physical worker. His work is always physical
Hmm.
in the sense that he's just from the time he decides it's time to go to work to the time I bring him in for dinner after dark, he's doing something, but he
Hmm.
apparently needs to with his manifestor generator, manifesting generator energy. And, but I always feel that he does kind of judge me, but I don't think he is. I think it's me and my own feelings being projected
It
onto
is
him.
because I've had this conversation with Presley. Like I've told him, like I feel like you're judging me that I'm not doing something. He's like, I couldn't care less. He's like, do what you want. I don't care. And I was like, I know, and I know that you say that nicely and mean it nicely, but it comes across like you like like he doesn't care. But I know what he means when he says, I couldn't care what you're doing. But
Yeah.
I know it is me that's reflecting that onto him.
And you do need, especially if he told it, because I was hesitant to ask you because I know there is a similarity there between them and that they are both like to be engaged in doing something, right?
Hmm.
Now, Presley, it doesn't have to all be physical energy in his work because he's a generator. He's not a manifesting generator. So not that all manifesting generators have to be physical, but they have more energy
Hmm.
to to burn. They like to be busy. Where generators, we can get in that zone and be more of a like focused in a what's the word, in a I want to say steady, but like in a sedentary. I don't want to say that either. I want to say we can,
You can be stationary.
maybe that's good. Maybe.
Yeah. But
And I know manifesting generators can too. I know everybody can, but I have just learned watching our energy and the way it moves. I'm definitely a more slow and steady, and
mhm.
he is definitely more of a like all over, you
Get
know,
up and go.
yeah, here. Well, so I have been feeling a lot of these insecurities around dedicating myself to this business and building this business, and it's unpredictable, it's inconsistent right now, it's just like it's in the building phase,
Mhm.
and I'm just feeling really like, oh, he must think I'm not providing enough, or he's gonna get irritated with me because I'm not quote unquote working, and so I don't want to bring anything up because I'm afraid he's gonna be like, you need to go get a job, because deep down I know I'm not gonna, I can't, I'm just like, I've gotta go
Mhm.
for it. So I know I'm starting to try to pay more attention. Is that really what he's thinking, or is it just me? And
Yeah.
most of the time it's just me. Yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe just giving yourself that break.
I have been trying after I've had that conversation with him, I have felt more like I can just if I want to watch TV as soon as I get off work, do it. If I want to read, if I want to clean, like I do what I
Hmm.
want to do, but there are still times where I feel like I'm just pittering around the apartment because I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And it is interesting to observe how we behave around each other, because I'm quite envious a lot of the times of how your father just moves through life with the confidence that he does. Now, he wouldn't necessarily call himself a confident person,
Mhm.
but he has no problem taking up space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he just enters a room and he's in the room. It's
Mhm.
like I don't know, he just expects to be heard. When he expects to be recognized and heard when he walks in a room, and it may be a white
Mhm.
guy thing, which I think it has to do a lot with being a man and just being raised a little bit differently. Whereas women, I think, were raised to take up less space, which you're
Mhm.
my daughter. I hope I didn't do that too much to you, but still, I don't think it's, or I know I'm not the only influence on you growing up. There's lots of things out there that have
Yeah.
influenced, I mean,
I
all of
mean, daddy
society.
also influenced me. It's so
Hmm.
you weren't my only parent.
No, I know it wasn't. You two are very close for sure.
Yeah.
But well, I'm glad you got a little break. We all need it now and
Mhm.
then to just like be able to do whatever it is we want to do and what we feel led to do, and not
Mhm.
feel that we have to be accountable to anyone else. I think
Yeah.
that's why we go on vacations and things like that, just to like get a little break, have a
Yeah.
little reset, that kind of thing. So, but here I said we had nothing to talk about, and there we went on a little tangent, but that's okay. So we're gonna bring it back. So we're gonna do things a little differently today. I know you guys, everybody gets to hear me talk a lot on this podcast, and that's, maybe you need a break. So I sent this really, I thought, interesting little article to
Mhm.
Haley a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of sitting in the back of both of our brains, I think. And we knew that we wanted to talk about it. We hadn't really talked about it much to each other. And it's it's not strictly a human design topic, but it is definitely in the vein of things that we find fascinating, interesting, and also helps. We'll tie it into human design as well because, well, we're human.
Yeah. I mean, some of it we have talked about on this podcast before, so.
Oh yeah, true. So why don't you tell everybody what this article we found, what it was about? I still can't get past the image that is
Creepy
that
image.
Yes, it was on medium.com. It was
Uh-huh.
an article somebody wrote. So, and it had a little alien picture,
It was
which
really
was weird.
creepy.
I know, and every time I go to try to find the article, I have to go back in our text thread and it just pops up the like
You're like, oh
aliens.
shit, there it is.
I'll try to put a little screenshot
Yeah.
on the video so people can see what we're talking about. It's weird,
Yeah.
but
So so funny enough, and I texted you this after you sent me the article and I read it.
hmm
So it's about water having memory, and I texted
hmm
you that I actually already knew of this concept
hmm
and learned of it from Frozen 2.
oh, that's right, the
And
Disney
it's
film.
like, yes, and it's like kind of a major ends up being a major part of the plot. So
And that's funny because I know I've seen Frozen is it two? Is it?
Frozen 2 is the one that talks
Oh,
about it. Hmm.
I don't think I saw that one
It's good. It's good.
because I think you were an adult by then, and I didn't
Yes,
watch.
for both of them.
I've also, I have seen Frozen. I don't think I saw Frozen too, but
You should
okay,
watch it. It's good. Hmm.
I will now that
Yeah.
memory of water.
So, so this article is about water has memory, like I said. And the article kind of started talking about how the earth was just really, it was really freaking hot. I have my notes. It was hot AF, then a ton of icy comets pelted it, giving us our water. So, so water never came from, like, it did not originate on Earth. It
Right.
originated from outer space. So it was saying if we're made up mostly of water and no living thing on Earth can do without it, are we aliens too? And at
Yeah,
this point,
I love how it said we can exist without water, but water can exist without us. And
I have
therefore,
that quoted. It says, water can exist without humans, but humans cannot exist without water. Therefore, water is life. Water is source. And I was like,
hmm
yeah, yeah, here we
hmm
go.
and also it's the thing that we look for in the universe when we're looking
Hmm.
for habitable planets. I don't know
Yeah.
if it was in that article or I read that later, but that's what we're always looking for is there some form of water
Hmm.
or was there
Yeah.
present?
Because we literally cannot, no life that we know of can exist without it.
hmm
And even with like all of that, how vital water is to us,
hmm
scientists really only began researching it about 40 years, in the last 40 years or so.
hmm
And you're like, really? That's it? We know that it's so vital. And we're like, yeah, it's just water. That's
hmm
like, okay. And so what they've kind of started to find in this variation, this cornucopia of I don't know, I can't think of a better word than that. Of research is that water kind of has I can't think of a better word than cornucopia, and I don't know
Plethora?
why. Yes, thank you. Because
A
you know
lot.
what? I don't use cornucopia in my everyday language.
I've never heard you use it before. As a matter of fact, I think you'd probably point at one and be like, what is that called again?
Normally, yeah.
But hey, it's in there
Look,
somewhere.
this is what happens.
hmm
But so what kind of has kind of been emerging from this research is water has its own consciousness, its own awareness, its own ability to communicate. And the
Which is
fact,
crazy.
yes, and the fact that it remembers too. It
hmm
remembers. So in the article, the first bit of research it starts talking about is by a Dr. Jacques Benveniste.
hmm
In the late 1980s, he was actually a French immunologist,
hmm
and he was the first one. He conducted experiments suggesting that water had memory. So he took proteins and diluted them in a test tube or petri dish of water. Basically, he diluted them down so far until there was no trace of the proteins left. It was
hmm
just water. Could not find the proteins in there at all. So then he
Did
took
they
that
say what
same.
the proteins were, like what it was from, or what? Do you remember?
It
I don't
didn't
know.
say, but from what I gathered, I believe it was some kind of he was an immunologist, so
Immunologist, yeah.
something in that realm, I believe.
Right, right.
Um, because once he diluted those proteins, he then took that same water and introduced red blood cells. And those cells, those red blood cells, reacted exactly how they would have if those proteins were there. So even though the proteins were not traceable and were no longer traced, like you couldn't find them in the water, the red blood cells reacted the exact same way, like as if it was the exact same protein there. So the next bit of research I talked about was by Dr. Luc Montagnier. I didn't look up how to pronounce his name.
He's French.
That makes sense. But he won the Nobel Prize for discovering the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. Now people really see how tongue-tied I can get while I'm speaking.
No.
But so he built on Dr. Benevi's experiment. He did kind of the same thing, but he went more complex proteins. He diluted DNA in a test tube in his lab in Paris, again, until there was no physical DNA present, and all that remained was a low frequency wave signal. He then took that, recorded the wave signal with a magnetic coil, converted it to a digital wave signal, and then sent that digital wave signal, he sent it to Italy, where that wave signal was then played into a flask of pure water. That flask of pure water with the DNA or the wave signal played into it then had the frequency of the DNA from Paris.
So I love what you just did because you were able to like, I read that many times, but I understand it better now that you said it. I was like,
I had to read it a few times. I'm like, what? Yeah. So I was like, okay. So he basically did the same thing, but he then transferred it across a distance to some completely unrelated, not even in the same room, and got the same DNA.
yeah, there's other, I don't know specifically to water, but a lot of what we're talking about here is vibrational information, right? And there was experiment done, I think Stanford or whatever, where they were able to, they started playing around with vibration and being able to how it affects things around it, and being able again to kind of distill it down to just a vibration, and taking that vibration and feeding it somewhere else and being able to recreate a sound. Does that make sense? But anyways, I don't want to get too far ahead, but anyway, so it's very hard not to want to jump in. But that's okay.
So,
it's conversation. Yeah. It's conversation. Yeah.
So then from there, we moved to about the 1990s. This one's really cool, where Japanese scientist Dr. Masaru Emoto experimented
A little extra
he experimented with the molecular structure of water, how it changes when exposed to human words, thoughts, sounds, and intentions. So he took the suggestion that water has memory and expanded it to theorize that it can understand and communicate. So what he did is he exposed different glasses of water to different words and intentions before then freezing the water and examining the crystal structures that formed, examining them under a microscope. He found that with the more loving, benevolent, compassionate human intentions, the crystals that formed are really beautiful and really aesthetically pleasing, like just very nice, very pretty.
They look like snowflakes and mandalas and sacred geometry and all that. They look really cool. If you've never seen it before, I'm sure a lot of people listening probably heard of that before and seen it before, but if you haven't, definitely check out some of those images.
Yeah. And so then the glasses that he exposed to more fearful and discordant human intentions created these really ugly, harsh, disconnected, disfigured, like very unpleasant crystals, like just bad.
Yeah, they're definitely disorganized. They're very jagged looking.
Yeah, they do not look like what you think of for an ice crystal.
No.
And then he also kind of recreated that experiment where instead of using words, he just showed the glasses pictures. and it had the very similar response. So like pictures of like the mountains and just very serene, peaceful things created these nice, pretty, like aesthetically pleasing crystals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ones that he showed like that were violent or very ugly images
Mm-hmm.
had the same kind of like unpleasant crystals.
Yeah. And this work has had far-reaching consequences because I'm sure people are very familiar now with, I don't want to say maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe it's just the circles I travel in, but
Mhm.
about infusing your water with healing intentions or flower essences, which
Mm.
is just I don't know if do you know what a flower essence is?
No,
So
I
it's
thought
not
it
an
was just
essential. No, it's not
okay.
an essential oil. It is literally kind of the same concept of taking the plant material and distilling it down. There's a process they use alcohol, distillation, all this other stuff to where it's literally clear. It's just like a water, but it carries the vibration of that
Mm,
certain plant or flower or whatever that's supposed to have positive impacts, healing properties, that kind of thing on your
mm.
physical body.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Bach,
Mm,
they call them Bach flower essences, I believe. Is the
mm.
BACH Bach.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. So further in Dr. Emoto's research, he also was able to show that polluted toxic water, when exposed to positive intentions, could also be altered and restored to show the beautiful crystal structures found in clean, pure water. And I
Mm.
thought that part was like kind of a little mind blowing. It's like, so you can just take this polluted, nasty water, give it good vibrations, basically, and it
I
produces.
mean, some, right? I mean, I don't think we're all gonna like
He
just
didn't say
start.
drink it. He just said it looked like pure crystal forms from
It
pure
needs a
water.
little help, I'm sure, still with some purifying. I think we're not gonna all throw all the science out the window, but I think we can agree that there's a lot that we don't know more
Hmm.
than we do know for sure.
Yeah. Um, and then he also took it another step further. He did many different facets on his experimenting. He also demonstrated
Mm-hmm.
that how sound affects the crystal production. When he played more classical music for the water, they created again these
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, nice, symmetrical, aesthetically pleasing crystals. And when he played the water heavy metal, it became again jagged and distorted crystal structures.
Yeah,
So
I can
water's not a
imagine.
fan of heavy metal.
No.
No.
Depends on the music, I might agree. I
Mhm.
um it's so fascinating, and because I mean I think that what immediately comes to mind is that whole thing of like we're mostly water. This planet is covered with water. We're
Yeah.
mostly water. Our physical bodies are water. So like what does that mean?
Hmm.
Were you going to continue?
You
Heavy
basically
metal,
said
heavy metal.
my next point there.
What?
Well, you're saying think about our bodies are made of water. In the article, it says if our thoughts and intentions can completely change the structure of water in a petri dish,
Mm-hmm.
what are our thoughts and intentions doing to all of the water coursing through every cell in our body?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah. And that's when you're like, all right, here we go.
here, here we go. Let's get it through
um,
it.
yeah. So then in the article, we meet Dr. Zach Bush,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes out swinging. The first thing from him is he says, "Memory is all in the water."
Mm-hmm.
And then I have an actual quote from him because it was just very good. So he said, "We've never found a database in the brain or peripheral nervous system that
Peripheral.
allows for long-term memory. We have short-term memory in the hippocampus, but it disappears into this black box of long-term memory, and we don't know where that's happening on the neurological side. But we know through water structure that water carries memory at the molecular level in an exquisite state."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I said, we don't know where long term memory happens.
Mm-mm. If we knew, I mean, a lot of these things would be, I mean, they're still trying to get to the root of what causes the long-term memory deficiency, like in
Mhm.
Alzheimer's or dementia. It's like they don't know where the memory goes. None of us know where the memories go. No, we don't
That's
know
crazy.
so much. I mean, we see the brain, like even neurologists and brain surgeons are like, well, this is a brain and it's like it's a functioning thing, but what does it do? It has
Mhm.
electrical impulses, but how is that like translated
Exactly. Oh,
throughout the body? There,
crazy.
of course, we know there's nerve pathways and all this other stuff, but things like this more and more correlate with, of course, again, the ancient
Mhm.
sciences, especially you talk about energy science or the human energy system, the Chinese medicine or the chakra system of there being these pathways throughout the body that carries electrical information. But how,
Mhm.
right? How does it
Yeah.
do that? It's not all in the
It's like
nerves.
we can see what's happening, but we don't know like why. What
Yeah,
why?
exactly.
So then he goes on to tell us that every cell in our body holds water in this crystalline gel state. He said
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like jello, like a thick jello.
Mm-hmm.
And the that water is surrounding the DNA in our cell. And so when that water receives light energy from the food we eat, it then begins to vibrate at a specific frequency. And that then creates this antenna on our DNA. And it like that's how we get the information from the
Mm-hmm.
universe.
Mm-hmm.
I had to listen and read his parts several times. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I didn't know if you had something.
Well, what I thought was interesting because in that article it links to a video where he's talking about this stuff. And he was saying how it is interesting that we're mostly water. Like I said, where is the water in the body? It's not really
Hmm.
water as we know it. What do you call it? Like a fourth state of water? Is that
Hmm.
crystalline
The crystalline.
gel state?
And then in that same video, another thing that was fascinating to me is he was talking about how scientists don't really understand how water is entering into the cells. He's
Mm-hmm.
talking about the cells have pumps and
Mm-hmm.
processes that force like potassium and like all
Mm-hmm.
these other minerals and stuff into the cells, but water doesn't have that. There isn't
Mm-hmm.
a section of the cell where it has a pump to pull in the water. It just kind of does, and
Yeah.
they don't really understand why it does that.
Yeah, and it is crazy. And I had so much to to say about that because or it triggered a lot of memories in my mind or
Mm.
wherever they are in the water in my body. I did this one day workshop a couple years ago with this guy named Gil Headley, and he is an expert at fascia in the body, which is you, people are talking about it more and more these days, what fascia is and what fascia does. And most of us know it as like it encases our muscle fibers and all this other stuff. Like,
Hmm.
not to be gross, but if you look at a piece of meat or a steak or whatever, you'll see this thin membrane that holds it all together. The
Hmm.
muscle tissue is fascia. And he actually is, I don't think he's a doctor. He's not a doctor, but he was like a body worker, and he's done all this different study and research about how the body moves and everything. And so he got into this line of work of literally dissecting cadavers
Hmm.
and exploring the human body, especially through fascia. And so when we went to this workshop, there was not an actual, there was not an autopsy or actual body there, thank God, because
Good.
I wouldn't have been prepared for that.
No, no.
But a lot of his work is showing slides and talking about
Hmm.
it. And it was amazing because he said that when he first started doing his research, doing these dissections, it was hard to find the fascia necessarily. We knew it was there, but then he started thinking about, well, a lot of times cadavers such as that are donated for research or whatever, you need to get to them before they're embalmed, right? So
Mm.
like It has to be very shortly after death. There can't be anything else in it because what the embalming does is it dries up a lot of these tissues inside the body.
Oh.
And he found that when he started working on bodies that had not, and these most of them they're older people. They've
Mhm.
donated their bodies to
Yeah.
science, whatever. He found a different structure inside the body, which was this like you could lift it up. It was more of a film, like a gel, and that was what the fascia was like when it's like in the body. We would always see it as this hard structure of holding everything it does, but it can't be. I mean, it can certainly shorten and tighten and all these other
Mhm.
things. It's largely collagen, which
Mm.
is why it's so good to have these collagen supplements, everything, especially as you age, because your body stops making as much collagen.
Mhm.
But what he introduced to me in my mind was that this is actually how the electrical activity moves through the body is through the fascia,
Ooh.
which makes sense when you bring this whole concept into it of the water being what holds the memory or the information, the communication, because they're not really, science isn't really sure how it happens yet. But I mean, they can't prove it. But
Right.
when we put it in this context, how interesting is that there is this substance which in the body which encases everything, and it's not just like one layer of fascia over like your bicep. It's
Mhm.
like there's a layer, there's an entire layer of outer fascia that is underneath your skin that if they took your skin off, it still looks like a layer of skin, but then there's all of these other layers with between all the fiber structures in your body. So your bicep is, when it moves, it has to glide kind of
Mhm.
thing, right? When it does this, it's moving back and forth. Those are layers of fascia in there. That's what creates the glide. That's where all the water is in the body, is in that gel like, but also fascia. So I find it fascinating.
That is
It's like
fascinating.
making those connections for me. I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh.
Yeah.
So that is also why, or an explanation of the whole. You ever heard the expression, the issues or your tissues? Have you ever heard that?
Mm. No.
You'll hear that a lot in like yoga or these healing communities. The issues are in the tissues. I mean, the body keeps score. The body holds on to emotional energy or trauma or any of these other things. I know you've heard that before, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talk about body awareness all the time.
Right. And
Uh.
so that really, I mean, it just, this whole article, that's why I said it to you. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay.
Mhm.
So when we think about what human design shows us, sure, it's a body graph. It's this is your energetic blueprint, but there's that one side of the chart also, which is the body side they call it, which they
Mm.
call it
Yeah.
your genetic. I mean, it is the physical body that's carrying you around. It's the energy that is imprinted on that structure, and it carries the epigenetic material. We talked about the
Mhm.
epigenetics before, which is just, how does that happen, right? And
It's
this
it's
kind
because
of,
the water remembers.
I know, and what we're talking when they're talking about the DNA research and being able to
Mhm.
dilute it to nothing and then bring it back, it's like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
And that's kind of another the next point that Dr. Zach Bush had is that fact that water can remember is what he believes allows us to wake up each morning knowing who we are. And then that's when I had the thought, I was like, we know who we are at such a deep, fundamental level. Like, not in our brain, but in our body. Like, we
Hmm.
know who we are. And I was like,
Yeah, you don't wake up and I think the example he gave is if you woke up one day and you were told that your name wasn't Haley,
hmm.
that your name was actually Veronica. For one, you'd be like, I don't, I'd rather be named Haley, but it wouldn't change what you felt about
Right.
yourself, like your identity necessarily,
Hmm.
at a fundamental level. I mean, it would raise a lot of questions, but
You might have to process some things, but
might change how you feel about me. I'd be like,
yeah.
why are you lying to me all these years? But it wouldn't. Yeah, because he said it's not, your identity is not like a cognitive thing, right? He
Yeah,
says
I
it's
have it.
a
I have that next. It's not a cognitive process, it's a vibrational event. And then he
hmm
goes on to say, there's an awareness of self and a coherence of memory of your body that's held at the water structure and its resonance around the DNA strand.
yeah.
Yeah. And then the next part he says, I was like, I know this one. He said, he's talking about how the position of the sun and the planets at our birth sets our water into a very specific vibration. And then to quote him, he says, and from that moment forward, we receive all of the energetic information of the universe to the tune of that sacred geometry. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, when they say, I mean, we obviously in human design, that's what we're talking about all the time is that in the voice said it was the neutrinos, it's the things, the smallest particles coming from the sun that pass through us at any I mean, they're happening right now. There's literally millions of neutrinos that are passing through these small particles that pass through every form of matter, the earth, all that
Hmm.
stuff. And since I mean, and it's not just the sun is just the biggest celestial body near us. It is our huge. It's huge. It's our huge. It is our
Hmm.
source of life. It informs everything, but all of the universe, everything in the universe. And I thought it was so interesting what he was talking about, like all the planets, all the everything is
Hmm.
basically affecting this crystalline structure that we're born into, right? Is
Yeah.
that how you would
Yeah.
say it?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was at this point when I first read the article that I texted you and said, science is finally catching up to what we've been saying.
Probably a lot of people. I know. It is, well, if you have any kind of questioning mind, you're going to get to this point where you're like open to these ideas because the cold hard facts of what they have so far just don't explain enough of the human
Hmm.
experience. It doesn't
Yeah.
explain. There are people that want to call astrology or even human design or any of these things just phony or
Whack.
wacky, woo woo. You're delusional if you believe this stuff, blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but why does so much of it resonate amongst humans?
Hmm.
There's got to be something to it. And it's so arrogant to say that everything out there in the cosmos does not have some kind of impact on us. It's like,
Yeah.
how do we really don't live in this bubble? I mean, we like to think we do, but we don't. We have an atmosphere, but it's not
Hmm.
like a barrier, what do they
I
call it?
mean,
The
if we,
shield like in Star Wars around
yeah,
the Death Star or
force field
something. Force
is the
field.
word. But I mean, even if we look at like the solar eclipse that we had a couple weeks ago, like
Mm-hmm.
that didn't physically touch us, but that still affected us.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were
Yeah.
still very affected by that emotionally
Yeah.
and physically by it. Like we don't live in a bubble.
Mm-mm.
But the last little bit from the article that I want to discuss is a quote. It's from a Vita Austin. She is water researcher that was
Mm-hmm.
referenced in the article.
Mm-hmm.
She two quotes here. First one is water is not just a resource, it is source. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
true, true. And then the last quote from her, it says, um, water is transparent. It knows no color, creed, or religion. Water does not judge, nor does it label. It will enter the body of an ant as easily as it will enter the body of a king, or a homeless person, or a tree, or a dragonfly.
Mm-hmm.
Water is our constant companion. From the moment we are conceived, it is always with us. Without it, there is no life. Rebellious, nonconformist, eternal, and alien. Just look at the power we are filled with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Yeah, it
that's great.
I know it made me looking at all this stuff. I was like, I need to go down to the beach every day and get in the
Hmm.
water. Like, I don't think I'll get fully in the water, but at least my feet in the water.
Yeah.
But so turning this again around to what we talk about a lot in human design, which isn't just a human design thing. This is a very much a spiritual and a mindset kind of thing of being able to be in control of your experience or your I guess experience is the right thing. I'm you can change your life, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can, Louise Hay was the one who started the whole like, you can heal yourself through healing mantras and affirmations and those kind of things. People, believe it or not, but if you've ever experienced the power of words, which is just spoken language, which is vibration, which is affecting us at that level in our
Mm-hmm.
bodies, it to me it helps make sense of, if we are mostly water and we have this structure within us and it's affected by vibration, then it totally makes sense that what we vibrate
Mm-hmm.
is going to determine the experience that we have. Because this Zach Bush guy, Dr. Zach Bush, was saying that it feels like we're on this precipice of understanding this at a fundamental level, where you people will start to actually hold more of this higher vibration light energy in the human body, and be able to really harness the power of that vibration to create optimal health and be able to heal themselves. And something he said, which I've heard before, is that you can't heal another person. Like, you could be the doctor, you could give the drugs, you could do the surgery, you could do all those things, but usually what is most effective in healing is where the patient is at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they have spiritual and emotional support is one of the biggest determiners of someone healing themselves from a crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is why is it some people recover and others don't? If they had the same kind of thing and they had the same kind of cancer and they had the same kind of treatment, or it doesn't have to be cancer, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What is the determining factor? Now, I'll be the first to say, don't come at me and say, well, I had a good attitude, I died anyhow, or I died anyhow, somebody I love died, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get it. My own mother died of cancer. She,
Mm-hmm.
I did my best to try, and she did too, but that's just, we don't know all the mysteries of life and why
Mm-hmm.
things happen. And it was time for her to transition on to the next level. But so don't say I don't understand sickness, healing, death, all those things. I get it. I know you can get dealt a shit hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, to my core, believe that even if you're dealt that shit hand, you do have the choice to change your experience through how you think about things, how you
Mm-hmm.
process things. And now, what I love about what we're talking about here is things that we can do to also help bring that about and support that and make that more of the norm. Because there's, of course, your own mindset, the words you speak, I feel are important,
Mm-hmm.
especially to yourself. Because we got on here and I was complaining about how the camera doesn't love me. And you're like, don't tell that to the water in your body or something like that. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yes, I know.
Mhm.
But we do.
I'm a
We,
big proponent at like I do not like to think negative, like bad, negative, detrimental things. I don't like to think them. I don't like to voice them because I don't want that to end up in the universe. Like I
mm,
won't do it. If I have like this bad thought about someone I love dying, I'm like, nope, shut it down. I'm not thinking
mhm,
that. And I'm
mhm,
like, get out of here. But I don't want to
yeah.
voice it because I don't want to put that out into the universe.
Hmm. And I agree. I mean, and we can't stop those thoughts from coming in. Who knows where that information is coming from, what the thought is, what it's usually triggered by something else. It doesn't just randomly, like,
Hmm.
that's a fear thought. And one of the most beneficial things I ever learned in all my training of yoga and meditation and all this other stuff was the idea that cannot you should not blame yourself for the thought that comes into your head. You have that random thought, but you're not responsible for that random thought. Especially me, if somebody with an open head could be your thought. I don't know. It's not mine. But but you are responsible for the next thought and the next and the next. Don't pile on. When
Hmm.
Abraham Hicks, the law of attraction, she'd always say you have like 17 seconds is all it takes, or something like that, where you can have the thought, but you do have there's space of time, if time exists, to shift the energy and shift the thought, shifting the
Hmm.
vibration. It's all about vibration. I mean, we God knows we've talked about the laws of vibration
Hmm.
and resonance and things aligning, which is really what we're talking. Alignment. What is alignment? It's being at the same frequency, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Kind of along those same lines of like shifting your thought. I know I've sent you a reel before about it, but it was saying that if you see something, the first thought that pops into your head, that's your conditioning, and the next one that
Mm.
pops out is your actual thought. Because like I've done that if I see like if I'm out and I'll see a girl that's like in maybe a really crop top, I'm like, oh God, why is she wearing that? I'd be like, you know what? Let her wear what she wants. Like, good for her. Like, I'll catch myself doing that. I'm like, good for her. She wants to wear that. Go for ahead. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, first thought is what you've been conditioned, and the second one is what you actually
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's judgment. It's like we have definitely been conditioned to think. I mean, that's what we talk about all the time. We can't, when we're young and when we're forming all these thoughts and beliefs about the world, they're not necessarily ours. And that's what I love about this this conversation and what this doctor was talking about was that we are imprinted at birth with a certain frequency. And that is
Hmm.
exactly what we're talking about. That is the
Hmm.
personality side of your chart. That is your frequency. And there's no point in trying to deny it. It is what it is. It could be a different on any given day, it could be a different expression. It's fluid,
Hmm.
but knowing
Like water.
that yeah, solid, not solid, yeah, frozen or gaseous. Gaseous today. I know when I heard that, let me hold that thought because I want to say when I heard the idea or the truth that water doesn't leave the planet and it's not coming to the planet, that it just keeps recycling in different states,
Hmm.
whether it's, in the
It
vapor
gets
form or
evaporated
liquid.
and then it condenses and then it rains down. It's currently snowing. Like legitimately right
Is it
now,
really?
it's snowing. Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow. April snow.
Yeah. So I
Different
am
form of April
witnessing
showers. Mm-hmm.
liquid falling from the sky.
Liquid falling from the sky. But the vibration, the crystalline structure that you were born with, your personality crystal that is been imprinted in your body, that is when you think about the frequency aspect of it, that is the signal that you're broadcasting. We talk about all the time. That's your
Hmm.
consistency. That is your frequency. And that's the frequency that people around you are picking up. That is what they are feeling. And so leaning into those aspects of your design is how you start living more in alignment, because what we're actually doing most of the time is weakening that signal. We're not
Yeah.
honoring those parts of ourselves, or through conditioning those parts of ourselves which as children or whatever that were so strongly felt by those around us, that were so pure, could have been the things that also we were told to lower the vibration on, that turn it down a little bit,
Mm.
that's too much. And so it is this relearning of understanding who we actually are, what our frequency is, which we all, it's not that one frequency is better than the other. It's just like the vast
We have
number
different
of,
ones for a reason.
yeah, I think it was Bruce Lipton who said that we are literally just these, our human body is just these forms that help translate the signal. And through this research, it's the water is what's helping translate that signal. And so it's a matter of tuning in to the right frequency. And we all have our own little notch
Hmm.
on the dial somewhere that is our unique frequency, that when it's tuned just right and you're giving off a clear signal, you can be received and heard. So I find that very interesting. So the point being to all of it, I think we've made the point many times, but I just wanted to say I just think it's really cool to see that every day it seems like science more and more proves what spiritual
Mm-hmm.
teachers and everybody else has known for a long time. We just had, or those wise ones just had, I don't want to say
They were at the right
faith.
frequency.
They were at the right frequency. It is a little bit of faith in the sense of not having religious faith, but it is
Mm-hmm.
being able to trust in source and get
It
in
is
touch
faith.
with that. Yeah, to trust in something you can't see with your physical eyes necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
to know that it's there, and to know that we all have our own unique crystalline structure, and
Yeah,
it's pretty fascinating. So did we cover
it is.
everything that we were going to cover? I can't remember.
I think so.
I had no notes for today, so I was just flowing with it.
No, I think we did.
But I think it also, oh, I know what I wanted to say real quick. What I said to you is, well, I'm really glad I started listening to these Solfeggio. Oh, see, I should have looked up how you say that too.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Solfeggio frequency music. I mean, there's a ton of it out there on YouTube and everything of or of music that is playing at a certain frequency, and different frequencies have different components or healing components or effects, whatever you want to call it. And from activating like a higher frequency, activating the pineal gland and inducing more of a meditative state is
Mm-hmm.
more in these like 900, 800, 900 frequency hertz. I'm sorry, where I've been really in this, which I was listening to some earlier and it was really nice. Or like 432 hertz is a really good one that's supposed to help with actually affecting the tissues in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like, and has this healing quality to it. It's like between 432 and 528. And I told you that for a couple weeks now, I've moved my Bose little speaker in here, which gives great sound quality. And I just play these. I mean, because you can get them on YouTube anywhere from an hour long to like 11 hours long. It'll
Mm-hmm.
just play this music. It's great background music, but I notice when certain frequencies that I've been playing, like those 432 or 528, I don't have as I call me crazy. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel that I have the same level of pain in my body that I can from sitting here. I still got to get up and move around and
Mm-hmm.
everything, but it's just like it feels different. And then we stumble onto all this stuff. It's like, oh, it makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense. And so what I find interesting between us though is also that I think we have a good healthy blend of wanting like proof,
Mm-hmm.
science, but then also enough being open to possibility. And
I mean, I literally in my chart, I have my logic, my
mhm,
defined logic head up here, but then I
mhm,
also have the gate that it is about the connection, having
to
faith.
source.
So
Yeah.
like I literally I have both those in me. So I'm like, this article was like perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so yeah. And I've been really interested in the sound healing. I love some of these. Oh God, I love the like singing bowls and all this other stuff.
Have you
I
ever
was
done a
looking up
sound
really.
bath?
Yes. Yes, I did. It was at my friend's studio. She had somebody that came in and had the big, I've done it a couple times, but the crystal singing bowls,
Mm-hmm.
big. And you just
So
kind of lay
cool.
there and this person, and this one, the best one I had, it was like, you can start to feel the vibration through you. And then
Mm.
she was also another person coming around with the smaller like little chimes or bells, and it was around you. And if you're
Ooh.
laying there like in this meditative state and somebody's moving around you, and because of the way your ears process
Uh-huh.
sound and your body, you can feel it. It's amazing. It's amazing. I need to do more of that. I was looking up sound healing near me. So I've got a few options. I'm gonna start doing that, but I'm definitely gonna have to go get in the water more. And while you were talking, we were talking about water. Just one
Hmm.
more thing I wanted to mention. Of course, the vastness of our oceans, and I think in that conversation they were talking about how stagnant water that doesn't move, clumps together, doesn't have
Hmm.
as much of that memory, but when it's moving and flowing like in a river or stream, it has it is more of
It's
in
its most
its,
natural state, I think is kind of
yeah.
what they were saying.
And you think about our oceans, they're just constantly moving. The earth has so
Hmm.
much water contained in its atmosphere. And I was thinking while you were talking earlier about the whales and the whale songs and
Mm,
how do they know? How do they know where to go? How do they know how to get from the tip of South America up to the coast of Washington or something
mm-hmm,
like that? And I know they use sonar, which is, vibration through water. Water is a great conductor of
mm-hmm.
electricity and vibration. But it just got me thinking, like, maybe there's even more to it that we don't yet understand.
Well,
What
even
is that water? What is the memory that has been passed down through
ooh,
millennia
yeah.
through these animals of which is the way to go? Is it just sonar or is it
Well,
literally
they talk
passing
about
through
like
them?
they do talk about animal behavior, like how we don't understand how, like same thing, like salmon. They know they have to swim upstream to
Hmm.
continue their species. The same thing we like, as far as I know, scientists they don't always understand how animals know how to do that. And when
Hmm.
you're thinking about it, because it's in their the water in their cells, like
Hmm.
that's what's happening,
Yeah.
probably.
Probably. All right. Well, I think we've kind of touched enough on that for today. And like I said, it's not strictly human design stuff, but we're not strictly just one thing.
We don't live in a human design bubble.
No, we don't. We have lots of things. We are human. There's lots of facets to it, but to
Yeah.
us, not it. But I really enjoyed talking this out with you. It was
Yeah.
fun.
That was fun.
And I'm trying to refrain from sending you all the weird things I see all the time because you might start to be like, okay, I need a break. I just want to go back to like my true crime podcast, not think about the true nature of the universe. And I'm like, that's all I think about.
I mean, how many space reels have I sent you in the past couple days?
Oh,
It's been so
love it. I'm
many.
having so much fun. No, I'm having so much fun with you. And I was thinking about that earlier of like one of the gifts of this podcast has been like I have so much more to talk about with you now. Like, I don't feel like such a weirdo when I want to share certain things with you.
I have
You're like
never thought
way
you were
more
a
open.
weirdo.
I know, but I was projecting on you because you just wasn't entering your awareness yet of like, what are you talking about? But now you're like getting it from me a little bit more. So I'm like, ooh, Haley's really gonna like this one. It's fun. All right,
Yeah.
so let's wrap it up. Let's let these lovely listeners of ours go, and
No,
if they're still here,
excuse you.
thank you for still being here. We love you.
No, no, we're not done.
No, I was getting ready to say that
Okay,
brings us
sorry.
to don't
Sorry, I thought
panic.
you were wrapping up.
I have memory as
God.
well. I am mostly water, and I remember before we wrap up what is the nice little bookend on our episode is the
Incarnation Cross of the Week.
that is correct. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the Incarnation Cross of the week, we have the right angle cross of explanation. So this is
Mhm,
on the personality side is the sun in gate 49 principles. It's
okay.
also revolution. You heard all that.
Mm.
Gate 4 is the earth gate there. Gate of answers, formulation, formalization. On the design side, in the sun is gate 43, gate of insight, and in the earth is gate 23, assimilation.
So we have principles, insight, answers, and assimilation. Okay.
Principles and principles, formulation 49, 4, 43, 23. So I did pick this one randomly. And what's
Mhm.
interesting is this is also the configuration of these four gates runs rampant in my family. I was like, oh, the 43, 23, 49, 4, that's what like Ian, Hunter, Lakeland, they all have, and my mom all had a combination of these gates. So
Well,
there
three
you
of
go.
those were born on the same day, different years,
True,
same day.
true, true. No, yeah, right. Same day, different years. You're correct.
Hmm.
You are correct. But I did pick this randomly. So,
Okay.
anyways, here we go. So, if you were born under the right angle cross of explanation, your role is to understand and apply key principles that address basic human needs. When necessary, you should lead efforts by bringing together a team capable of initiating significant changes. Your part involves more than just gaining support. You need to introduce new ideas that challenge conventional perspectives and broaden people's understanding of the world. This involves educating people about new possibilities that can change the way they interact with their environment. You're here to update old beliefs into new opportunities, but only when the time is right and there's enough support for these changes. Your main goal is humanitarian, to share innovative ideas that not only provoke thought, but also encourage a global reawakening. This requires an ongoing commitment to learn, teach, and adapt, all aimed at nurturing a wider, more enlightened global awareness.
Love it.
Because you think about it, I mean, the 4323, obviously, we talk about a lot.
Right timing. Big deal there.
Right timing, knowingness, new, fresh ideas, being open-minded, new perspectives, being very respectful of lots of different points of view. And then that 49 is that revolutionary catalyzing energy, has answers, fresh answers, new ways of doing things. So, but as I said, in response, we all have to probably wait to be recognized or have somebody ask us first. But anyways, that is the right angle cross of explanation. So now,
always good.
Now we can bring this week's episode to completion. We are complete. So we appreciate you being here and listening. And I will put a link to the article, I guess, if you want to read it yourself. Yeah. And don't just take our word for it. Take someone else's word for it. Do your own research. And we appreciate you being here. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye for now, Haley.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.